Hello and welcome to the Minds on the Frontline podcast, a podcast dedicated to meaningful conversations that inform, educate, and inspire frontline workers, their families, and the public. Our goal is to shed light on the mental and behavioral health challenges faced by those on the front lines while providing valuable insights and real-world solutions. Minds on the Frontline is brought to you by the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. FST5 provides streamlined access to behavioral and mental health services and crisis resources for Michigan's Frontline 5 workers and their families. This includes all professional, part-time, and volunteer firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, corrections officers, and 911 dispatchers in Michigan and their immediate family members. First responders and mental health experts collaboratively created FST5 to provide 24/7 live support, effective resources, and cutting-edge services to prevent and alleviate PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other frontline work-related mental and behavioral health challenges. Need help now? If you are a frontline worker in Michigan or an immediate family member experiencing any crisis, work-related, substance abuse, depression, relationships, finances, or any other, reach out by calling 1-833-34-STRONG or go to fst5.org for more information. I'm Jeff Lassers, one of your hosts, and I'm a professional firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator. Minds on the Frontline is co-hosted by Mike Mattern, also a professional firefighter and paramedic. In addition, Mike is a peer support team member for his fire department and the FST5 program. In this episode, we welcome Captain David Clifton of the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office Corrections Division, where he has served for 18 years and counting. Captain Clifton began his career as a corrections officer in 2007 and worked up to captain by 2022. Overseeing a staff of 60 correctional officers, 12 community service officers, 12 sergeants, and 2 lieutenants, he manages the daily operations of a facility that houses up to 404 incarcerated persons. His role extends beyond security, as he oversees medical personnel, food service contracts, and community mental health partnerships. David is deeply involved in training and mentorship, focusing on direct supervision, inmate behavior management, crisis intervention, and de-escalation strategies. His leadership emphasizes the well-being of both officers and incarcerated persons, recognizing the complex human dynamics within corrections. Outside of work, David is active in his community, mentoring young people and coaching sports teams. During this episode, we discuss the realities of working in corrections, including the unique challenges corrections officers face. Captain Clifton highlights the misconceptions surrounding corrections officers, emphasizing their role as mentors and caretakers rather than just enforcers. We explore the emotional toll of the job, the impact of repeated exposure to trauma, and the struggle many officers face in seeking mental health support. In addition, David shares his personal journey with therapy, breaking down the stigma within law enforcement and advocating for better access to resources. Finally, we examine how leadership and policymakers can improve conditions for corrections officers, ensuring that they receive the training and support they need and deserve to navigate this demanding profession. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn, and make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Hi, David.
Hello.
Good morning.
Captain Clifton.
Captain Clifton's in the house.
Yeah, he is.
Hey,
I got
he
to
is.
visit Captain Clifton the other day at work, as you got to see. Unfortunately, you couldn't join us.
Yes.
And I was like, take your podcast host to work day.
Yeah. First time I've ever done that.
right. Me too. And so it was a really good in-service into your world, right? Mm-hmm. And so before we get into the world of the correctional facility and those officers that run those facilities,
yes,
somebody who you are and like what you do and where you do it.
David Clifton, first and foremost. So I do corrections. I'm in corrections. That's what I do for a living. But I'm a father of 3, 1 in college, 2 in high school, former coach of multiple sports, 2 different high schools. My biggest thing while I feel like I'm here on this planet is to help people. And so that's who I am now. As far as what I do, I'm the captain over at the Washtenaw County Correctional Facility. Been there for 18 years. Under my supervision, I have about 60 correction officers, 12 community service officers, 12 sergeants, 2 lieutenants. Those are just the uniform folks. I also have medical personnel because we have medical services 24/7, 365, which a lot of correctional facilities don't have. So I have to help with assisting with that contract and the oversight for that. We have a food service contract, so I have to oversee the individuals that run the food services department. We have community mental health members on board. So we have a lot of extra partners that I have to oversee. And so my job is to make sure the daily operations as the captain or the deputy jail administrator is happening appropriately.
One thing I recognized that your facility is multiple systems coming together to perform one set of services.
Yeah.
Under one thing for one type of human being, and while protecting their constitutional rights and make sure everybody's safe, happy, and moving forward in a progressive way. That's a lot.
We explain it as this big machine, if you will.
Yeah.
And if you kind of take the hood off, there's lots of different cogs. Some of the wheels are bigger, some are smaller. Doesn't really matter what size though. What matters is if the wheels are spinning in the appropriate manner. And that takes all of us working together in tandem to kind of make this big dream, this big vision come true.
Let's talk about the spectrum of humans. It's not just corrections officers, as we came to light when you and I talked, but all the human beings that are part of this process include the corrections officers, the people that maintain the facility, the human beings that feed everybody, and then your community health humans to make sure and keep an eye on everybody on their mental well-being and talking through some things and offering services, education people.
Yes.
And then you also have, I know I'm missing one, your medical staff. They're all a part of this system. They all endure all of these stresses that happen underneath the umbrella of what you do. So one thing I want to point out before we get going is that the corrections process is much bigger than the typical what you see on TV is a person in a badge and then they bring them in and then they stick them in a hole. And it's so much bigger.
There's a lot going on, especially if you want to run a good correctional facility. The things you see on TV,
right.
Yeah, not even close.
not even close.
Well, like we said, fire, police, EMS, and even 911 have their own TV shows dedicated to the heroes that they are.
Yeah.
Corrections is never the good guy in any of this. It's usually a secondary character that you don't even know who they are. They're just a facilitation of the primary characters who are the inmates, if you will.
One joke you hear amongst probably anyone in corrections is we'll say when it comes to first responders or law enforcement, corrections officers are the redheaded stepchildren.
You're not kidding. In a lot of ways, like we were bringing up dispatchers and really shining a light on them, and you're the first corrections officer, and we've had multiple dispatchers in here.
Yes.
That's it.
I mean, we've had Sheriff Clayton, but from the facilities standpoint,
Inside,
inside, because you've spent, like you said, 18 years, not on the road, in the corrections facility.
It's a forgotten group of people, and I kind of understand because we're not out in the front. Even with dispatchers, right, they're making the phone call, so their voices are there. They're part of all the action. When all that is said and done, and maybe you have someone that needs to be arrested, they go to the correctional facility, and then the story stops, and then it's the cops and fire and EMS and everyone, they're off to the next run.
Yep.
No one knows what happened to that individual that, is not going to make the streets until a year later.
That's why we're glad that you're here,
Yeah.
because now we can get it out. Now we can start talking about it. But let's go back 18 years. What inspired you to pursue the career in corrections, and what has kept you in that career this long?
So the inspiration, I can say this is a little strange. So first of all, I want to give credit to my father. My father was MDOC, worked Michigan Department of Corrections for, I want to say 36, 37 years. He retired as a deputy warden.
Okay.
And so as a young teenager, my father told me, hey, you want to go into corrections? I have the avenue for you. At that age, I always knew that I wanted to help people. So let's get that out there. But going into law enforcement and put on a uniform at that age, I didn't think it would be possible to help people in a way that I thought people needed to be helped with the uniform on. The way that I saw law enforcement, just because of where I was raised, law enforcement wasn't the most friendly people. And so how am I going to help people by putting on that uniform? No way, right? So I kind of ran from that for a while.
Okay.
Speed up to, again, really spiritual person. And I believe if God wants you to do something, he's going to find a way. And so I'm working 2 jobs, guys, trying to make ends meet. I'm a janitor at the University of Michigan Hospital, and I'm a short order cook at a restaurant. On this particular day, one of the supervisors for the jail that I work at was having a half day. He stops in at the restaurant to grab some lunch. It's a Tuesday. I know this because it was 99-cent conies. And he walks in and he looks at me very perplexed. David, what are you doing here? I thought you worked at the hospital. I do.
Yeah.
I'll be going there in about 3 hours. Why are you working 2 jobs? You can come work at the jail. It's 1 job and you'll make more money than you're making with these 2 or whatever, right? So, okay, this whole correction officer thing, law enforcement, I've had several coaches throughout my life that's been in law enforcement, and they're all telling me, hey, law enforcement, put on this badge. And I'm like, no. And it just keeps coming back up, right?
Mm-hmm. You were pushing against the idea of any type of corrections or law enforcement.
Any type of law enforcement.
Is that because your dad was in it? You kind of didn't want to like do what dad did?
Not so much dad. It was just so I'm from the NWA era, right? I'm 46 years old. And so growing up in the city and in the area that I grew in, law enforcement wasn't the most friendly people.
Yeah, so automatically you're like, that's not my
enemy.
people.
That's not my people, right?
Yeah.
It took until I got older. So now we're talking 27, 28 years old when I realized it might be possible to infiltrate, if you will.
Ice-T said you got to infiltrate the system.
Yeah.
That was his thing. You got to get in and change it yourself.
And change it yourself, right?
Yeah.
Be the change you want to see. And so this opportunity came to me. I filled out the application. I got in there, and then this strange thing happened. I was like really good at it. One of my first memories as a young officer, probably 2 months in, the sergeant over the training program was checking in with me, and he says, hey, man, come on in the office. And he's like, so where did you work at before here? What correctional facility did you work at before here? I've never done this before. So I found that I was good at it. Now, what kept me in this is I figured out the formula as far as helping out human beings become better human beings while being in a correctional facility where there's a lot of forgotten people.
So you found your passion and your lane, the intersection of the two.
In jail.
right, which is good
That's all,
for the
yes.
people that are incarcerated.
Yeah.
You get the right type of person in charge of the building you're going to be in that it wants you to be better.
And I have more insight, right? So I understand the plight, if you will. I understand the circumstances and situations that a lot of the folks that are incarcerated in my facility have gone through. I understand why they're there. And so for me, it gives me a little more compassion to want to help them because I understand your situation. And I have the recipe, if you will, to kind of get out of that situation because I've experienced it. My father has, and other people that I know. And so, again, I think, God will put you where you need to be when you need to be there.
Leveraging the sum of your experiences into helping others. And that couldn't have been better for you, even though you were pushing it away.
I was pushing it away.
I think you needed that time to do those other things. And
it wasn't the right time.
Right.
That's where
That's all it was.
Needed to gain some different experience.
You were still in your 20s.
It wasn't the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
You needed to work multiple jobs to appreciate the single job, right?
Oh, yeah. Thank God
And
for
then how
one
it goes.
job.
Right?
Although I don't know, sometimes, Jeff, the responsibility that comes along.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I couldn't agree with you more. Okay. So one of the things that people don't understand is like what corrections officers do. And like you said, you got a building full of them that you're in charge of their well-being and their future. Mm-hmm. So walk us through their typical day for corrections officers and some of the biggest challenges they faced in just daily routines.
Yeah. So one of the stranger things about being a CO in a correctional facility is when you show up to work, you're in the building for the entire day, right? So normal folks, they go to work. You get a break, you can maybe step outside. You get a lunch break, you can run down to Chipotle or whatever.
Even in a hospital, you get a nice area to go run to that's got a more restaurant or atmosphere.
Yeah, so that's one of the nuances about being a correctional officer. They're in the building, and they can't leave the building until their shift is over, right? And so you come in, you get your briefing, you go down to your housing unit. Your housing unit, you may be overseeing 32 individuals all the way up to 60. These are 60 different personalities, people carrying different type of traumas, personal traumas, group traumas, and you have to kind of sort all of this out. Now, remember, in a county jail versus a prison, a lot of these individuals are pre-sentenced, which means they are innocent. And so you need to treat them as human beings, but they're innocent human beings.
I think you said 70-80%
Right
are pre-sentenced.
now, probably anywhere from 70 to 75% of our population right now are pre-sentenced, which means that they're somewhere in the process of going through the trial, right?
Right.
And
Which
so-
is in this limbo area where you're now there to maintain their constitutional rights, but
Yes.
also within the parameters of which the law set them in based on some actions they had.
That's a song
delicate
and
world.
dance that you have to be careful with. We're dealing with human beings. They may have been accused of doing something, but they haven't been found guilty, and you have to treat them as such. It's not an us versus them, right? Everyone knows cops versus robbers when you're a kid. And so there's a good guy and there's a bad guy. So everyone associates people in jail as being bad guys. How about it's just people that may have made a mistake, and maybe they need guidance. So one of the things in my facility that we tell our corrections officers is your relationship with the incarcerated population is that of a teacher to a student, or a mentor to a mentee. That takes a lot out of an individual. If I'm looking at you, Jeff, and maybe you're being accused of domestic violence, and maybe growing up, my mother was a victim of domestic violence, and I have to work a housing unit with you for 16 hours a day, and I still have to have compassion to give you the things that you need to help you out in areas that you need. Oh, you want to go to a class? You want to go to anger management? I can sign you up for that. You want to try to get your GED? I can sign you up for that. Oh, you just had a bad phone call. Let's sit down and talk about what's going on. To find that balance between you may not be the best type of individual, but you're still a human being and you deserve another chance, is something that every CEO probably struggles with on a daily basis.
For 8 to 12 hours a day.
16 hours a day.
Even under the best of circumstances, having a great conversations with people, there's a lingering of it as a human being, quote, knowing what they did, quote unquote.
And you take
right?
that home with you.
Yeah. And you're just ruminating on it. Because as a human, that's what we do. We analyze things constantly. We're pattern recognizing, danger identifying,
Yes.
stay safe. And there's this weird, unnatural feeling that I have where I look at the interaction between them, and you're maintaining this delicate balance. Both sides.
Yes. Yeah. And so building those relationships and maintaining those relationships, it takes a certain type of individual to come in and do that. And then I have to help them, right? And so help them get to court, help them get to class. Maybe there's a medical emergency. I might have to perform CPR on you to save your life. Sometimes COs are putting themselves in danger to help an incarcerated individual that may be trying to harm themselves, right?
Right.
And so the level of compassion that you have to be a corrections officer,
Man, you really do need to care and want to help
You
in
have to
order
want
to,
to.
and not just to do it well, to do it effectively. Because your actions and reactions are so dependent on the overall mission that where if you are astray mentally, whether it's your ego or whether it's your anger or if you can't be off there.
and that is why what you guys are doing, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later, helping those specifically in corrections maintain good mental health, as we'll get into, because of so much being pulled out of them. I have to be at my best if I'm going to be helping some people that may be at their worst. You
Right.
can't you can't have the worst helping out the worst, the blind leading the blind, right?
Now we
Yeah.
just have a building full
Yeah.
of people and we're just keeping them off the streets, and that's not making anybody better.
Right. And so we need to find ways to pour into and strengthen these. I mean, there's things that I've explained to people. So a normal lunch break for a corrections officer, as we're sitting here, we can be having lunch. And because of the shifts, they work 8-hour shifts, not 9-hour shifts, they're expected to respond to emergency calls even when they're on lunch, guys. And so you go from arresting,
Yeah, we get
Stay-
that. That's the
Yeah.
one thing I can relate.
Yes.
and
Yes.
you get that available officer's call, and it's
You popping. Yeah.
going.
you have to go.
Push and
Yes.
go. Yeah.
You better bring your lunch in.
Yeah.
Or you better DoorDash it, because you can't leave the building to get
Right.
Yeah.
can't get lunch. But yeah, not having your lunch, you got 30 minutes to kind of scarf it down, and if there's a call, you go to the call, then you can come back and reheat your lunch. Just little simple things
Yeah.
like that.
And over 18 years, that's not easy.
No.
Well,
Maybe
no,
if
that-
that's a couple of years you did to do something else, I could understand the going through it. But when you make a career out of this, which many people do, and we need them, we got to kind of make this easier.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also on top of it, like you're talking about, you pour a lot of compassion into people, and we see it, I mean, with us and all the first responders, but you get that compassion fatigue sometimes where, you've poured all of it out of the cup and now it's empty.
Now what do I do?
Now what do I do? How do I refill this thing? Because, the person before, maybe that's the seventh person you talk to. Well, the eighth expects the same that the seventh got. It's a lot of factors. When you are in any type of first responder, you do. At some point in your career, you hit it. You hit that compassion.
I could see it happening quicker at corrections and dispatch.
Yes.
Because you're just so inundated by it. Me and you, we can have lunch and not be interrupted sometimes, then we had to go. But there's goofing. Right, firefighters got the easiest. We're goofing around. EMS got it the second easiest because they had at least one partner to goof around with. Cops used to have it third easiest because they used to have partners, but they don't anymore. But at least they could hop at the station or meet up. And then we have our friends in dispatch who got the other dispatcher as long as nobody else called in sick. And then we got you guys. We're like, hi, we're stuck in here.
We're stuck.
We're stuck in here.
And I'm never off duty.
Yeah. When we go to work in our station, that's where we can shut the engines down, right? You guys are in the building, and there's no shutting the engines down.
There is no. Part of their job is to be inside the housing unit with the incarcerated population, interacting.
When you say that, you mean literally the housing, and as you showed me, we went in there. And it's intimidating walking into a place, and I haven't been sized up like that in a very long time by that many people. I'm like, am I back playing football again? Like one of those feelings, like you walk in.
They're all trying to figure out who you are. Is this a detective?
Is this a guy?
Is this
What's
a
he
new
gonna
hire? What's going on?
I want to. I'm a podcaster.
I just do podcasting.
Just don't pick on me. But it's intimidating. And then now you got to interact with everybody, be a part of what they need, and not just interact. You got to immerse yourself in it as a human being because that's when the good comes out of humans to hey, I need this because I got to go. And I witnessed it. I saw a number of people walk up to you and be like, hey, Cap, and they were legit. Like, hey, I'm trying to get a medical this. This other guy's like, hey, I'm trying to do this. These are things and people need to get stuff done. And if they trust you, it's going to help the whole facility. Oh, he's going to help me out. If I'm cool with the Cap and I'm cool with my guys in here, I can get what I need, which is getting out of here. And they don't want to keep me here.
Well, we have this strange thing out in the world where what's important to me right now may not be important to you.
Right.
In a correctional facility, what's important to the incarcerated individual should very well be important to you right now because that could be that's what's holding them up, stable-wise. That's what's keeping them together. You have this information that you can give them, and that can be the difference between them crumbling or kind of rising to the occasion and being okay. And so, that 4 months, we tell those guys, you're going to work this particular housing unit for 4 months straight. So you talk about that compassion. I'm going to be seeing you 40 to 60 hours a week for the next 4 months, and you're going to be sharing your story with me, and I have to go home to my own family with my own problems and try to leave those there, right? Most people say, hey, leave your problems at home and don't bring them to work.
It's go both ways.
It goes both ways. It's a two-way street, man.
It creates a divide in your personality. I think it's for all of them.
For sure.
You guys really.
For sure.
Over all these years, what would you say is probably some of the biggest misconceptions that the public has when it comes to corrections officers and kind of their role in the criminal justice system?
I think one of the biggest ones is people think corrections officers are big brutes and they're breaking up fights and people are stabbing and there's fires, there's all this chaos, the stuff that you see in the movies, and it's the complete opposite. What
says the D1 football player? Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's changed. So I will say there was a time when that was a thought process.
Yeah.
They were getting, you had to be 6 foot plus. You need athletes because they thought it was just brute force, right?
Yeah.
Lock them up and throw away the key because they're bad guys and that's what they deserve. As the industry progressed and got better and we realized that human beings are human beings and everyone deserves to be treated like a human being regardless of their situation, we found that you need people that can use judo, the verbal kind, really good. You'll see that a lot of corrections officers by proxy are turning into therapists, if you will, just because what they have to do. And so you have to be able to communicate effectively doing this job. It's not just about grabbing people and throwing on handcuffs.
It's about avoiding that.
It's about avoiding that. And so people don't understand. You have to be a compassionate person. You have to be well reserved to be a corrections officer. It's not this racing the cause and beating up the bad guys. They're just people, folks, that have made mistakes that need a little bit of direction. People's family members could be in your facility. And so this is one of the things that we do to motivate our guys to do a good job. We asked them, if you had a family member that was going to be incarcerated and you got to pick any facility in the state of Michigan to have them locked up in, which one would you pick? And they're all going to say our facility because they see how we do things, right? That compassion is not throughout every correctional facility. I want you to understand.
Yeah, that's like saying every police officer is good or bad. It's silly. They're all have their own thing, and every agency has its own personality as well.
Yeah, and so that's another reason I'm glad that you guys you have us on here. The industry is changing. It's changing to where we're having. So I'll tell you this: we had an individual that's been incarcerated in my facility over the years for many, many, many years. We just did business with him, and what I mean by that is he's a fantastic artist, one of the best artists you've ever seen. He painted a humongous mural canvas painting 5x6 for us. We purchased it from him, and we have it in our jail. How many correction officers or facilities are going to take a formerly incarcerated individual that's gone out, they're doing good in life, they're working, they're teaching our classes, hey, we want to really show you that the things we were telling you when you were locked up, we meant it. Come back and maybe even possibly get a contract with us. That's full circle. That's community policing right there.
Because you're a county facility.
Yes.
You're not a private jail that is just contracted to keep humans from getting out. You're a facility that is there to help these humans when they get out, presumably eventually.
Yes.
They're going to be better off than they could have been.
Right back in that same community.
And showing the ones who are in there,
there's an out.
This is possible.
There's a way. There's so many talented people that get incarcerated.
And they didn't know how talented they were because they didn't have the upbringing for people to tell them or force them into it.
And so that's why I say a lot of time correction officers are put there for a reason. We see people from their worst state when they come in. Maybe they're off their medication because we have a lot of people that suffer with mental illnesses, maybe substance abuse. We see them at their worst, and then we get to see this progression of them turning into the best version of themselves. And then you have positive people saying, hey man, look at what you're capable of. That positive reinforcement that they may not necessarily get on the outside. That is the things that people don't understand about correctional officers. We can help get people the train back on the track. We have the power to do it or derail them. And so those are some of the things I think people miss.
So let me ask you about this.
Yeah.
It's not always easy because you can be as cool as a cucumber to everybody. You could be everybody's best buddy, but somebody's going to have bad days or they're going to be verbally assaulting you. And as you pointed out, you introduced me to a young lady at the intake area, and he's like, how many times have you been verbally assaulted a day? She's like, 100. And she's just got this face of like the best person you could put there because she's like, bring it, I don't care. And she probably had like 17 brothers. She had that look on her face. But what's your advice for handling that verbal assault?
It's a couple of things, and you learn this through experience and time. There's a couple of things. Number one, it's easier said than done, but you can't take it personal. And this is why I say you can't take it personal. I've had experiences where after years later, I run into guys on the street. They've told me they're going to do A, B, C, and X, Y, Z to me when they see me. Now, as a professional, you don't buy into that. You continue to treat them with dignity and respect. You treat them like a human being. And this crazy thing happens when you see them out at the local Kroger or Walmart. Cliff, hey, man, what's up? What's going on? They're reporting out, hey, man, I'm doing this. I got a job. I'm doing this. Yeah, but what was all that other stuff? Listen, man, we get bored in there sometimes or we have bad days, and you guys are the ones that are there to take it out on, right? We don't have anyone else to take it out on.
What do they say? You take it out on the ones you love the most?
Take it out. And so in a way, that's what it is. And so that's why I go back to the first thing. You can't take it personal. You have to understand that these people, sometimes they're in the worst situations that they can be in. Maybe you just got off the phone call and maybe your girlfriend broke up with you or she told you she's not coming to see you or she's not bringing the kids up. And then I come up to you and say, hey, man, it's time to lock down. Mind you, you're 20 years older than the officer, and now he's telling you to go to your room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you how I feel about you.
You're already at a 9.
Right? Yeah.
You just tipped my scale, bud.
And so understanding, just kind of the temperature that some of those folks that you're carrying, where they're at, it helps you be a little bit more compassionate. It helps you be a little bit more understanding.
I could see where like a psychiatrist helping to train corrections officers to recognize what that is, and that's like a misplaced anger at you. They're not yelling at you. And to be reinforcing that and to leverage it back and say, this is an opportunity. If they feel that welcoming to come at you like that, they're probably as open to getting your help too, because they're willing to focus on you.
That's the other thing. There's a saying, right? So the help in a correctional facility is not 5 miles or 10 miles away. It's like 60 seconds to 120 seconds away, right? Those guys, the guys and gals in there, they know that as well. So they know even if I come at you, the cavalry's going to come. I'm really not going to do it. I'm just angry.
Yes.
And I'm expressing myself.
It's a display.
Yes. A lot of times that's what it is. It's a display. Or they're not that verbal, and then you walk them to their cell, you get them in their cell, you close the door, and then now they turn into the Incredible Hulk, right?
Right.
Well, if you really, really wanted to harm me physically,
The dog
had
behind
enough
the
time.
fence.
you would have done that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's verbal. And again, just understanding that they're in a situation that I'm not in. And right now I'm the sounding board, and I'm going to be the professional and understand that and know that's part of the job.
Be there to help them. I'm going to help you by not engaging in this.
15, 20 minutes later, I'm going to come back
Hey, how you doing?
and show you some love, and we're going to talk it out.
All right, yeah. I'm glad we're doing this.
Me
You know
too.
what I mean, because I think it's a story that needs to be told. And
Yeah.
people need to understand.
I think we're going to
that.
need a couple of these conversations.
I agree, but with being in there, you know, unfortunately, there's things that do happen. You know, you have the suicide attempts, you have the violence. You know, there's a lot of trauma and stress that's just unavoidable while you're in there. How do these experiences really impact the mental health of the corrections officers and their families? And what have you found are some of the strategies to help with that?
Yeah, that's a big one there, and this is probably one of the most important ones. So this line of work is absolutely going to change you. It's going to change you. The dangerous thing is the person that is going through the changes, and sometimes their spouses or loved ones, significant others, they're not going to see it. It's kind of like if you have children and your children are growing, they're getting taller, everyone notices it except for the parents, or the voice change because you're there all the time.
You're there.
Right?
Yeah.
So this job will absolutely change you. Mental health for first responders overall, I do believe it's changing. Here's one of the things about correction officers and why I think this is important. So working in the housing units, one of the things you see all the time is those that are on medication a lot, mental health people. And so you have this stigma when they come up to the med cart and they're taking their meds, and you're seeing 6, 7, 8 pills being dumped into their hand, and then they're taking it, right? There's this nasty word out there. Oh, they're crazy medication, right? So you associate medication with not being well, and you don't want to be that, right? So here's the other thing that comes along with being a CO. There's lots of training that comes along with mental health training. We have community mental health in our jail. By proxy, you're going to get educated on some of this stuff, and COs will start to see the signs and symptoms of some type of mental health thing going on in themselves. But if I open up to that, now I'm one of them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to deal with. It's a
Yeah.
hard thing to battle. And so they keep it in. They don't talk about it. And you're not going to tell your family about it, because most people in these fields, you're either alpha male, alpha female, right? You're a tough guy. At least you're supposed to be, or you're a tough gal.
Right.
You're not allowed to be broken. And so you can't show it. You can't talk about it. That's part of the problem. It has to take out of you the things that you see. Police can respond to a drowning, if you will, at said lake. So dispatch calls it out. They know where it is. Fire, EMS, police, they show up. Let's say the person passes away. So now everyone associated with that event has trauma around that lake. Maybe the dispatcher never has to do another emergency call to that lake, so they may not have any triggers. Fire, EMS, police, maybe they never go back to that lake, so they don't have a trauma response to that. A correctional officer can have someone attempt a hanging or be successful at a hanging in their cell, 3 up in said housing unit.
You're going right back to
You're
it.
going right back your career. You can't miss that housing unit. You can't miss that cell.
Even if you did, you're in the next one over.
You're
It
in
looks
the next
exactly
one
the
over,
same.
and it's a cookie cutter system, right?
Yes.
And so it looks identical.
Well, not only that, but you know the person.
You know the person.
The person behind it as
Right.
well.
I think I was in my first 2 years there. I was the third officer to show up to a successful hanging. The housing unit, the cell, it'll never leave me. But the crazy thing, and this is one of the things about PTSD, the face of that person does not leave. It doesn't go. I was working at housing unit 2 days previous and had interactions with this guy, and now I'm pulling him down off of a noose, helping with CPR, pulling him out of the cell, helping with CPR, and now he's gone, and I'm putting the sheet over his head, right? And then you have to return to that housing unit or housing units that look like that for the
It's got to
rest
go
of your
back in
career.
operation. Yeah.
You can't shut it down. And here's the other thing, Jeff. We're talking about human beings. Think about the individuals that are incarcerated, the next door neighbors that have been interacting with this guy for. So the emotions, the energy that's tied up in this job, it's wild.
That is wild. Yeah, man.
With it, what have you, or if you had to talk to corrections officers, younger correction officers who might be listening right now, or other correction officers, what have you found that's really helped you to get through those times?
Yeah, so I'm going to be one of those guys that toots this horn, right? And you usually get people that, you go to the local restaurant and they got a really good cheesesteak hoagie, right? So you want to go tell everyone, go get this cheesesteak hoagie.
Okay.
So therapy was my savior. Now, maybe we can do a whole nother episode of what got me to signing up to go see a therapist. But I don't know if I'd still even be in a profession had I not gotten the help that I knew I needed for years. I fought against it, right? And so,
Why?
well, there's fears that, okay, if my bosses find out that there's something going on mentally with me, law enforcement, they're this whole fit for duty thing, right? So now you're not fit for duty. You're off of work and you need to go get help. So we don't want that on our conscience. So I'm not going to tell anyone. Some people think it's a sign of weakness. There's something wrong with you. You're broken. All those stigmas that come along with it, I fought against it.
And your position is appointed.
I'm an appointed position. They
So-
can let me go just like that.
Exactly.
That's the thing is, after what you just said, for everybody that's listening, he is now in charge of the jail.
Yeah.
All those things that you thought would stop you from
Yes.
getting there, you're there, right? You're spreading the word about therapy. You're spreading the word about mental health. You're talking about your own personal story, and you're there, and you've stayed there.
Through this whole journey of me getting the help that I absolutely needed, I was actually promoted to lieutenant during this process and then appointed to captain. So promotional process finished number 1. They said, yes, we want you. And then the sheriff said, I like you enough and I think you're proficient enough at your job that I want you to be the number 2 in charge of the correctional facility.
And so they based it on your performance rather than your medical history, for lack of a better term,
Yes.
right?
And here's the thing.
So it's a strength to you. It made you better to do the job, because if you didn't admit to it, you didn't get help, you wouldn't have the mental fortitude to do the job.
my performance has 100% increased because of all the tools that I have gained to regulate all the things that we see and we go through. And granted, I'm not on the line anymore. I sit in the office. So my COs...
Could have fooled me. I walked through a facility, everybody's hitting you up for everything. Like, this dude can't get anything done.
But that's a good sign of
Yeah, they were
treating
very comfortable
people
walking
Yes.
up to you.
right and not having this whole God complex. I'm the captain. You can't talk to me.
You were engaged just
I'm a
if I
man
walked
just
in, I
like
would have
you.
thought you were just a CO in the building.
Yeah.
You weren't the boss.
And some of those guys they've known me since I was a CO, unfortunately. And so we've maintained that same relationship, right? Because it's a person seeing a person.
Yes.
That's all it
That's
is.
Yes.
interesting. They can watch you grow through your career as they go through their sentence.
Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, that's getting the help. And so fighting against the stigma of getting help is probably the biggest thing that I would tell the younger officers. You can improve not just professionally, but just your life overall, just becoming a better person. That is what I have found through this entire journey. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be in a podcast talking about mental health, I probably would have punched you in the face.
Me too. Me too, honestly.
Actually, everybody in this room.
Yeah. Like schmodcast, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, just the amount of experiences that I've had over the past couple of years has changed me tremendously. And I want to do my part while I'm here on this planet. And that's helping any and everyone that I can in any way that I can.
So would you say that recognizing where you could find help mentally and emotionally allowed you to release stresses that you had and to be stronger in the long run and see your path clearly? It removed the fog. That's how I feel with my therapy. I feel like fog gets sucked out of the room. Like, oh, well, this feels obvious now.
Yes. A combination of that and imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah.
Getting through the fog and like, you know what? You are capable, David, of doing this. You're capable of doing that. You're capable of doing that. The fog gets cleared because you hang on to old traumas, you hang on to old ideas and thoughts about yourself because of old experiences. And you're like, well, if I screw that up, then I'm going to screw it up now. No, you're not the same person. And you have different tools to move you forward now. So let's try it again. And then you start seeing success and you're like, holy shit, this works.
And those barriers might be gone, like less stigma, less judgment, more resources. A boss that went to school to become a therapist that could completely appreciate it.
It's all lining up.
Right.
It is.
So in that same vein, how can programs like Frontline Strong Together 5 and other support programs make it easier for corrections officers to seek help?
Here's my wish list. And I'm going to explain it to you this way. Specific to CEOs, you get hired as a correctional officer, right? You get handed your duty belt. You're going to have a taser. You're going to have ASR. We're going to teach you how to shoot a firearm. We're going to teach you defensive tactics so you can learn pressure points, how to take people down. We don't teach them, hey, in your first 5 or 10 years of the career, these are the type of traumas that you may run up against. Guess what? When you see them, these are the type of responses that you should have. You should have. It's okay to feel this way. And then if you feel this way, step 2 is this is how you seek help. Like a guidebook.
Here's your options. Here's some SOG you can follow rather than not knowing, not talking, and not seeking.
One of the most helpful things for me, and so sometimes people have to struggle through things, and the responsibility is to send your hand back to others so they don't struggle. So when I struggled with, I knew I needed a therapist, and I would get brave sometimes and sit down and say, I'm gonna do this. I didn't know where to start. And so I had a really, really, really good friend, dear friend of me, pointed me in the right direction of psychology.com today. And this is how it's set up. And this is how you find yourself a therapist. So giving CEOs like a guidebook, this is how you find a therapist. These are the steps. You take less thinking out of it for them, because if I'm in that state, I can't function fully. I'm going to need a little bit of help. But again, showing them some of the things that they are going to run up against in this career, show them the steps to get through those things. Show them these are the signs that you are having some type of trauma response, and this is how you get through it, and make it normal, okay?
Make it expected. You're going to have a bad day. We all have had a bad hair day.
Yes.
You think you're never going to have a bad day? It's like saying I'm always going to be happy.
You can't do that.
Good luck.
No. I like listen, I've traveled down this path.
Yeah.
This is what you're looking at.
Right.
Right?
Or better yet, 18 years of seeing not just me, but everybody else go down this path.
Yes.
And this always happens.
It happens.
Yes.
And as we get towards the end, more they start to talk, right?
Yes, because they see the light, and all of a sudden they start to get. It's every
so
one of these professions.
My thing is, hey man, I don't want these younger kids to go through this.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we have the knowledge, we know this is going to happen. I mean, a dead man's curve, right? Do we not put up a sign a couple miles before the dead man's curve so the person doesn't run off the cliff?
Right.
Yes.
So what we're doing is we know that these things are bound to happen in the profession, and we're still neglecting to warn them. This is not a scare tactic.
Right.
It's a warning, because most people that sign up for this, they want to go in the profession. So we owe it to them to say, this is what could happen. This is how you combat it. And these are some people that went through it and look at their career. They were still successful, so you can do it and still be successful.
And we need you.
Yes.
We need them so bad.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Talking about the younger officers, the younger COs, what should someone know before stepping into that career as a corrections officer?
It's a very demanding job. One thing that you will find is personal life kind of gets taken away. So correctional facilities, 365, 24/7, holidays included. Someone's got to work the holidays. Someone has to work the weekends. someone has to work the midnight shift. And so you're going to be away from your family at times. A lot of times in law enforcement, that's based off of seniority. So when you get your time, you'll get your time off, but let them know that beforehand. Let them know that this job is going to kind of take from you, and teach them, whether you want to say balance or harmony. I kind of like harmony, but teach them hobbies. Have some healthy hobbies to have outside of here.
Friends that aren't COs.
Friends that
Friends,
are not
yes.
in the profession is extremely important, because they help keep you grounded. And it's not, you can get bogged down by the same BS if you're talking to the same folks that are experiencing the same problems, right?
Exactly. I got a buddy who's a lawyer, another guy who sells titles. We like all hanging out because like we don't have anything in common professionally. Nothing.
Right.
Well, not a lot of them you knew before you got into the profession.
Right.
You know
exactly,
what I mean? So
exactly.
those
So
are
we don't
the
even
friends,
need to talk about it.
Those are the friends that ground you the most.
Right.
You know, because they'll tell you to shut up. You know,
Like,
what I mean,
whatever.
you start talking too
It's
much.
your deal.
Yeah,
Shut
like,
up and
listen,
deal.
dude, shut up, man. Let's just hang out. You know?
And that's
Right.
part of the balance, is not
Yes.
bringing the job home. So don't talk about it.
Yes.
Don't,
Right.
don't hang out with the friends and talk about the job all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
Balance, harmony.
Work-life
that.
balance.
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and I think the younger generation is very much in tune with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just letting them know you can do it in this profession. We need people in this profession. And like most of these professions, I think if we gave a little bit more attention to what the humans need to occupy those and gave them some more money, it would solve a lot of issues for everybody involved, including the outcome of better people that are either pre-sentenced or sentenced being cared for.
Yes.
All the things get better.
Awesome.
So knowing all of that, my final question for you is, based on your experiences, the sum of all of them, how can policymakers, frontline leaders, the department people, the bosses, the people that can turn the switches, how can they best support the mental and behavioral health of their personnel?
Well, I think number one, start by acknowledging that mental health affects everyone, right? So let's erase the sand. You got mental health and you got physical health. How come it's just all can't be health? You know, it's okay to have asthma, but I can't have anxiety. I can have diabetes, but I can't be depressed. So erase the line and stop making it like it's this mystical monster, right? It's a normal thing. So make mental health normal, and then making getting access to mental health services normal. And funding, right? And so we don't want to go down this road, but people talk about defunding police. No, you're going to get what you pay for. And so you need to put more money into those human beings that are putting these uniforms on to go out and serve and protect, so that the product that you get, the response that you get is better. And so if you know that these folks are going to be going into very traumatic instances, make sure that they have the best health insurance out there. Make sure they have access to the best doctors, psychiatrists, therapists out there. Let's put one on duty. And so one of the things in my correctional facility, we have CMH for the incarcerated population. That's great. They're there Monday through Friday. They're on call on the weekends. Something happens, they can get the help. Can my staff be ordered in some way to have an on-call mental health professional so they can get some help right after they run down,
Or maybe
and pull
a
that
peer
person off
support
the knee?
team.
A peer support
team.
Yeah, if you don't know what a jail smells like, or you don't know what it sounds like for that metal door to close, or you don't know what a food tray feels like in your hands, I don't know if I'm going to listen to you about telling me how to get help through the things that I'm experiencing versus, wait a minute, man, you did 20 years as a corrections officer?
Yeah.
You got help? Tell me about this, because you seem like you got it together. You're doing pretty good.
Yes.
It's always easier to listen to someone that has had the same shared experiences, right? And so let's push some of these folks that are retiring into the field of therapy so they can go back and help those. So I think maybe just to kind of close out this conversation, maybe this is the first of many conversations, because I'm enjoying this. I think it's good to recognize that leaders in law enforcement, specifically corrections, are recognizing and realizing that mental health issues is something that's real, that getting help is something that's possible, being successful while you're getting that help is something that's possible, getting help is something that isn't frowned upon and you won't necessarily get in trouble for it. It can actually help make things better. For me, to sit here and to talk about this, I never in a million years thought that I would even experience the things that I have experienced. But I understand now that I've gone through those things to help other human beings become better human beings. And so if I could leave you with anything, right? Make yourself a priority, especially if you're one that likes to feed into others. As we said earlier on, a cup that isn't full or a cup that has holes in it cannot properly fill any other cup that it's trying to pour into. So take time to pat yourself up so that you're fully capable of holding that full load that you want to dump off into other people.
Thank you for listening to the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We have more great content coming out soon. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And make sure to like, subscribe, and follow all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you, and have a great day.